Hello, my friends. Today we will be talking about Lesson 12, the Western and Eastern Empires. Quick review, what have we already learned? How do we know there was a civilization in Rome in ancient times? Think about that. How do we know? The Romans were a group of people living together in a well organized way. They built cities, developed writing systems, they had leaders and laws, practiced religions, they grew their own food by farming, they had different people doing different jobs. That is how you can tell there was a civilization in Rome. Who are the main characters in the legend about the founding of Rome? Who are they? We have two main characters. They are Romulus and Remus. What facts can you remember about Julius Caesar? Were they maybe he was an accomplished soldier, a dictator of Rome, he conquered the land of Gaul, he secured the alliance between Rome and Egypt? If you can think of any more, go ahead and say it. What facts can you remember about Augustus Caesar? He was Julius Caesar's successor. He was the first emperor of Rome. He greatly expanded the empire. He instated the Pax Romana. He was adopted by Julius Caesar. You keep going. What events contributed to the decline of the Roman Empire? Are you thinking many of the emperors and senators became greedy and selfish? The real problems were ignored? Rome had to hire mercenaries instead of asking their own citizens to fight for Rome? The citizens of Rome were growing weak and lazy? Or children barely learned the history of Rome's greatness or power? All right, let's move on to vocabulary. Complex means it is made up of many related parts and possibly difficult to understand. Dominant is more powerful or important than someone or something else. Persecuted is being treated cruelly, often because of religious beliefs, skin color, or political beliefs. You have been mistreated. Vision is a mental image of something, a clear idea about how something should be done. Let's read about the Western and Eastern hemispheres. In the previous lesson, you learned about the many invasions that led to the decline of Rome. You learned that the Roman armies had become weak compared to the days of Julius and Augustus Caesar and that they relied on paid soldiers or mercenaries to protect Rome. You also learned about how the Roman emperors and senators wasted lots of money on bread and circuses, gladiator games, chariot races, and other luxuries, but did not spend money on the things that would keep Rome safe. The Roman Empire simply became too vast to handle. It was impossible for a single emperor working with senators and proconsuls to control everything that was happening over thousands of miles of Roman territory. And there were many selfish emperors as well. The governors and generals in charge of the Roman provinces could do as they pleased. Over the course of many years, Rome itself became less and less important to the people who lived in and ruled the Roman provinces, which stretched from Italy to the surrounding areas of England, France, Spain, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roman culture changed in important ways as well. We know that the Romans always tried to bring their own laws, lifestyle, and culture to the countries or tribes they conquered. At the same time, the Romans ended up adopting or taking on parts of the cultures that they conquered. In other words, even though the Romans had their own culture and traditions, they also picked up new ideas and customs from the people they met in faraway places. One of the biggest changes in Roman culture involved the rise of Christianity, the religion based on the teachings of Jesus. Among other places, the Romans conquered Jerusalem and the surrounding land, so they were in charge of the area where Jesus was born. In his lifetime, Jesus was known as a teacher. He told parables, which are stories with important lessons about life and about God. Many people, including his 12 apostles who followed him everywhere, believed Jesus was the Son of God who had come to the earth to bring a message of peace and hope from God. One of the most important symbols of Christianity is the cross. Jesus was crucified or killed upon the cross. In Roman times, crucifixion was a common punishment for criminals, but Jesus was not a thief or a murderer. He was accused of treason against the Roman Empire, meaning many Romans thought he was trying to overthrow their power. Jesus was not, however, found guilty of any crimes by the Roman governor Pilate. Christians believe that after Jesus died, he came back to life and rose from the dead, an event known as the resurrection. Jesus became the central figure in the religion of Christianity, which slowly but steadily spread from Jerusalem in all directions. At first, many Romans did not like the Christians. Christians refused to accept and worship Roman gods, so right away there was conflict between the two groups. However, some Romans understood that different people worshiped and prayed to different gods. So some Christians were allowed to worship and build churches in Rome and in other parts of the empire. But that does not mean that the Roman emperors favored this. Some, including the fiddling Emperor Nero you have heard about, really hated the Christians and did awful things to stop the spread of Christianity in the Roman Empire. For the first couple hundred years after the start of Christianity, Christians were often persecuted, tortured, and harassed throughout the Roman Empire because they would not worship Roman gods and goddesses and the emperor himself. Many Christians worshipped in secret to avoid persecution. Eventually, however, many Romans started believing and following the teachings of Christianity. Rome became a very important center of Christianity, even though most emperors and senators did not like it. By AD 300, Christianity was spreading, and new churches seemed to dot the landscape as abundantly as the ancient temples to Jupiter and Apollo. Around this same time, the empire itself was going through another big change. The Roman Empire was so vast and so complex that it needed to be divided into two parts: the Western Roman Empire, with Rome as its capital, and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire would be ruled from a new capital city called Constantinople. Constantinople was named after an important Roman leader. His name was Constantine the Great. Constantine the Great was the first Christian Roman emperor. He made laws ending the persecution of Christians. In fact, Constantine the Great said that individuals should be allowed to worship whichever god or gods he or she chose, so there were no laws against any religion in the Eastern Roman Empire. Because Constantine the Great was a Christian, under his leadership, Christianity continued to spread. Constantine brought new hope and confidence to many Romans. His new city of Constantinople was a chance at a fresh start. Even with this new start, politics were just as difficult in the Eastern Empire as they had been in Rome. Under Constantine's rule, there was still conflict and warfare. Meanwhile, the city of Rome remained the center of the Western Roman Empire as well as the center of Christianity. The political situation in Rome was worse than ever. Emperors came and went, and many politicians could hardly agree on anything. Worst of all, wars were breaking out in the north as more and more surrounding tribes started looking for new homes on Roman land. Before the Visigoths invaded and sacked Rome for the first time, Christianity had become the official religion of Rome in the Western Empire. Unlike the Eastern Empire, there was only one legal religion in Rome. Rome became the center of the Catholic Church, a branch of Christianity, as well as the home of the Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church. But while Christianity was becoming the dominant religion in Rome, the people who the Romans considered barbarians were becoming the dominant force along the empire's northern borders. As you have heard, first the Visigoths and then the Vandals sacked Rome, stealing and burning everything in sight. Eventually, the Eastern Roman Empire completely separated from the Western Roman Empire. Once separated, it wasn't called the Eastern Roman Empire anymore. By AD 410, the Eastern Empire was known as the Byzantine Empire. This photo shows the most famous Byzantine church, the Hagia Sophia. The Byzantines built many churches, but none compared to the Hagia Sophia, which is still standing today after more than 1,600 years. By AD 500, the Western Empire had fallen apart, with most of the provinces falling to one barbarian tribe or another. A Byzantine emperor, Justinian, raised a mighty army and marched west to reconquer the western province, thus waging new wars in the same areas Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar had been hundreds of years earlier. As emperor, he developed a body of Roman laws called the Justinian Code. The Justinian Code was a collection of past laws from previous emperors, in addition to laws he developed himself. The Justinian Code is one of Justinian's major accomplishments as emperor. Justinian appears in the center of the mosaic, which you can see today, in an Italian church. Despite Justinian's and other emperors' efforts, there was no way to keep the Western Roman Empire together. The Byzantine Empire continued for almost 1,000 years in the east. The Western Empire in Europe, from Italy across France and Germany and all the way to Britain, drifted into a long, sad period without leadership and vision from the powers of Rome. The glorious Roman Empire finally came to an end. All right, discussion time. Please go to the discussion board, answer the question in complete sentences, and have a great afternoon.